I think we are live right now. Yes. Okay. So, welcome to my Simple Daily Joy channel. Today, we're going to try something different and new. It is December 2nd, 2022. I'm finally here doing a live stream conversation with Ron Oatmans of Lead Skill. And today, we're going to talk about journaling for leaders and creatives. And this is going to be a great conversation. So I'm thinking about journaling. If you are a leader and a creative and never considered journaling as a way to um, improve your mental wellness, get clear on life purpose, and have breakthrough in new thinking and insights, I advocate journaling as a way to unblock things. So, but how do we go with this, Ron? Do you want to ask me questions or do I ask you questions first?
I'll ask you a question.
Sure. Mhm.
Well, first of all, we talked about journaling, and maybe that's a good place to begin. What do you mean by journaling?
So, for a long time, I consider journaling as getting a notebook and a pen and just writing on paper. I've done that since as long as I could remember, since I was in elementary school, primary school for some people who live in other parts of the world. I'm based here right now in US. So, right now, I am in the place and space where I'm open to people writing, journaling digitally, but there must be movement in the hands, you know. And so that's what I consider what journaling is. How about you?
Um, yeah, I'm thinking about the distinction between journaling and writing,
Mm,
and what that actually means for people, because we have as their focus for today for this live stream journaling for leaders and creatives. And I think some people probably view journaling in a narrow sense
mm,
and equate it with like um, kind of like writing in a diary, or recording, kind of like what I did in a day, and those sort of you know yeah, those sort of things.
mm.
And if we talk about writing, people often, I in my impression, it's like writing is more of like creative writing, or that you have to be writing with some sort of um, a goal, a purpose, a story in mind, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So my my
Mhm.
impression of journaling is more than just a diary,
Yeah.
and it includes the things like writing. And so I use the word journaling because I'm literally writing in a journal.
Yes. In a
Yeah.
notebook. Yeah. You got to have movement and on paper or digital. It's your thoughts and ideas. I'm glad you mentioned it because when I first started out, you know, I call it diary. And I will record the events that happened during the day. But as I progressed along in my years of living, I noticed it was processing a lot of feelings, especially my teenage years, and how I felt about things. Later on, when I was on a creative path in my 20s, I took on this morning pages activity, popularized by Julia Cameron, who is the writer for The Artist's Way. And for her, it was every morning when you get up, just write 20, not 20, for 20 minutes, write 3 pages longhand, and just everything that just comes up from your brain and just unload it. And then I did it for many, many years. I've stored up many journals, but I don't do that as much now. But I still use my journal in different forms. Like I have a gratitude journal. I have a journal where I just do what I call junk journaling. And I also have a journal where I just capture the best thoughts that I have after I've done some meditative walks or something that I have read somewhere. So I like what you said about capturing thoughts and ideas on paper. That's how you describe journaling. So my question is, um, as a leadership consultant, um, how how did you begin your journaling journey, and how has it evolved and morphed over time? That's helped you in your work.
Um, I've been journaling for years. I mean, it goes back, more than 20 years now. And as I think back to it, really, I, I, I actually did use it more as a diary. I was recording events of the day, thoughts I had, and more because I wanted to be able to remember it. So it was kind of like an extension of memory.
Mm,
And um, and as an American male, a diary to me seemed kind of girlish or feminine, and
mm,
so I called it a journal because that's more masculine in the impression I had, and that's just to save a little bit of vanity or ego. And it's only been over years, over time, that I've moved from diary, and I still do that. I still record things. It's often as a way to just get started because, the whole notion of you sit down with a blank sheet of paper, what do I write? And just like writer's block for creative writers, where do I start? What do I write? And I
mm,
find, you know, what you said is actually very good of movement on paper or movement, even if you're doing digital writing on a keyboard and, some device, movement is what matters. And I think that's what Julia Cameron, was advocating in Morning Pages, was just write. Even if you judge it to be junk, even if you think it's worthless or, it's just no good, um, there's some value in it. And over time, even though I still do diary, work to get started, I've abandoned the idea that I'm going to record everything.
mhm.
And, um, I have learned to depend more on journaling as a way to get clear about what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling and what's going on inside of me. In fact, I recorded this in my journal today. I won't read the whole entry, but the thought that came up for me was, um, I set myself the question, what am I doing when I'm journaling? What is it I'm doing? And my answer is, I'm thinking and reflecting and expressing myself. I'm actually revealing what's going on inside of me.
Mhm.
So every day I need to read it and I need to write. And journaling is how I get myself clear on what's going on inside of me and what I intend to do.
Yes, reveal it. I'm just typing it out. It's so good. It's a way of revealing something inside of me. It starts with paper. And I never thought of myself as an artist, like a sketch artist. But if you look at my wall,
Yeah.
that
I
is what
noticed those.
happened. So this is a person in which I remember when I was in seventh, oh, probably seventh or eighth grade, and I was trying to in one of the in art class. It was to make a folder, and my artistic skills were so bad that I couldn't get an A even for making a folder, and I was so upset by that not getting the A that I remember asking the teachers to give me another chance. And she said, if you turn it in before Friday or before Saturday, I'll grade it on Monday. And I remember doing that, going to um, uh, getting new materials, made another cardboard folder, and then turning it on Saturday, walking to school and turning it in, and to get a low A or a high B. I can't remember, but I remember thinking like I'm not as artistic, so I spent a lot of years just going to museums, enjoying other people's art. And here's the kicker: after years of lots of writing, this came out. This is a rough. So I got it from a DK book. DK is a publisher from England, I believe, and it was a book of birds, and I was able just to just like draw it just like that. And this is a Maltese inspired art over there. And
So the black and white, what you call a rough, is
yes,
actually a bird.
yes, it's a bird. So this is what journaling happened for me. Like all the other things inside of me that I never thought was possible came forth, you know.
You
So
used a word there, that you didn't think of yourself as artistic.
yes.
Speak to us for a moment about the difference between being creative and being artistic.
Autistic is someone who have set on themselves to be on a path of on a creative path, artistic, on a creative path. So when I'm looking at Caravaggio, who paints these ancient saints in a museum, he has set himself on a path to keep creating human figures, saints who love being. Um, there's always a candlelight and a book, just that kind of pictures, and this constant repetition of the same kind of image, and it just, and you just get better, better over the years. You observe that kind of evolution of a person, of someone. So an artist basically um, keeps doing the same thing again and again, and it just becomes like a craft. So a teacher can be an artist, a professor can be an artist, a musician could be an artist, an influencer can be an artist, because you're staying in the game and you create the same thing again and again, and it just turns out so beautiful. That's what I consider an artist. A creative, on the other hand, is just someone who is willing to try new things, try something different. And therefore, I consider everyone a creative. Does that make sense? I'm sorry if I'm just like, yeah.
So, you said an artist is someone who stays on the path and
Yeah.
gets better and better at their art,
Yes.
whether that would be the painting arts or the literary arts
Yes.
or the musical arts,
Yes.
that someone who really just, you know, is the practitioner of an art and gets better and better at it.
Yes.
And com- help us out, like in comparison, a creative is what?
So I'm writing here a willingness to try something new or create something out of nothing. Create something new out of nothing. So for me, my definition is a creative. Everyone is a creative. It's a willingness to try something new or create something new out of nothing. Do you agree? Or you want to challenge that? I would love to be, or add on something to
Yeah,
make
I'm
it
thinking
pop
about
up.
it.
Yeah.
Everyone is a creative. Um, I think a lot of people would push back or
Yeah.
argue with that and say, "Oh, I'm not creative."
Yeah. I totally
You know,
get
so
it.
maybe speak to that. The people who would say, "Oh, but Angela,
Yeah.
I'm not creative."
Yeah.
How do you respond to that?
Do you eat? My question.
Yes, yes.
Have you ever gone into a kitchen and cooked something for yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the dish that that you could cook?
I mean, there's several of them. I mean, I make my breakfast just about every morning, so I can make cereals,
Yeah.
oatmeal or millet or different things. I can make eggs and omelets. I can make curry, Thai curry. So yeah, there's things like that. And so, are you saying that the act of making a meal is creative?
Yes, it is. I've watched how just make put things together. Even if someone who just have the same um, butter, is it bread or oatmeal every day, the same version. Okay. Um,
So for you,
it's
the some
creative.
anyone who does a simple, creative thing, just doing creative things makes that person a creative.
Yeah. The, maybe I need to backtrack now that you mention it. I think one is there must be some intentional thinking behind it. Is intentional thinking. So intentional thinking, a desire to to birth for something new, birth for you know something new,
Yeah.
and doesn't every human being have that desire?
Hmm.
I mean, I'm just thinking about the students I used to teach, those high school kids. They have some of the girls, they love to paint their nails, and they're just beautiful, just beautiful,
Yeah.
nails. So, I- you know, that's their way of expressing their creativity. But, that's not me. But I have other ways of expressing my creativity, because creativity is anything. Here's another thing. Thanks for mentioning it and challenging it. Because creativity restores your soul. Yes.
I'm thinking about, I don't know why, but it popped into my head. Um, that a movie that we saw this year,
Mhm.
and it was about a woman who painted um, these mostly girls, but figures with impossibly large eyes. And then her husband was the real kind of had a flair and passed it off as his work. And so she was like working in the studio, basically slaving away, you know, producing the art.
Mm.
And she, and I think at some point her artistic production stopped being creative,
Yes.
in the sense that it became about productivity or production,
Yes.
and repeating this, the same thing and just cranking it out.
Yeah.
And so because I'm still playing with this distinction of creative versus artist, and I was asking myself the question, is it possible to have an artist who's not creative, or who's
Yes.
not being creative?
Yes. Totally. Yes. Hmm. Yes. I have been when I'm so an artist is someone who's on some kind of a path, a path where they do that what they do constantly, and
Okay.
okay, it just repeats. Okay, I mean, even if you're a software engineer, you can be an artist in your work if you really want to be, what I would call come alive at what you do in your life. Come alive, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, having an artistic spirit helps you, not artistic spirit, to treat your work like art. Everybody can do that.
Okay. So I'm sorry. I hope I haven't derailed us here, because, what we set out on this live stream was
Mhm.
journaling for leaders and creatives, not
Right.
leaders and artists.
Mhm.
And I think, people would, um, artists would tend to be more willing to declare themselves as an artist.
Yeah.
If they are an artist, they would be more willing to say, I'm an artist.
Mhm.
I have found that um, not as many people are willing to declare themselves a creative. Now, there are people who say, "Yeah, I'm a creative." That's what I am. Not as much as a vocation. I think artists often kind of see art as a vocation, and more people who are creatives maybe wouldn't say, "I'm a creative," as that's my job or that's my vocation. But it's more of a description of how I approach things, or how I do my vocation, how I do my life, if you will.
I believe that leaders, and I am glad you talk about, and I want to stick with, because creativity is a big topic, and we really wanted to talk about leaders and creatives using journaling. So let's go back here. Leaders can use journaling to become creative in how they approach issues and problems. This is a premise that I'm just going to start with. Do you agree? Have you Have you realized, have you sensed that in a way when you
Sure.
write? Yeah.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
how has, like, because you said, because you just like you said something about how when you are journaling, putting thoughts and ideas on paper, you become more in touch with your inner world.
Hmm.
How does becoming more in touch with your inner world help you become more creative and expansive in the way you look at things?
Whenever I journal, I can begin with a question or a topic or a theme. And as I start writing, I can be surprised by where my mind goes or what comes out as I'm writing. And there's other times where I don't have a theme or a topic. Like I said, more if I'm doing the diary thing of just recording events of the day, just getting started. But again, movement, on paper, like you said, that's good. Um, just starting movement, it will help me to formulate my thoughts or get clear about, just asking the question, what am I feeling right now? And then as I write that out, um, I think it taps into creativity because in my world, at least, it helps me become more self-aware. And journaling for me is a way of processing and nurturing self-awareness as opposed to just kind of bumping along and running on what I call borrowed thoughts.
Mm,
And I see that a lot of what we do, I mean, when I grew up, as a boy, we had TV, we didn't have the internet. We had
mhm,
TV and radio, we had books. And, those were the places where you kind of learned things or got exposed to other things. And now we've got social media and we've got handphones, mobile phones,
mhm,
smartphones, where we can have it with us at all times
mhm.
and on demand. It's like the programming never lets up. I know you know this. It's like it used to be that programming went off at a certain time, like midnight. Sing the national anthem, or you get the test color
Yes,
pattern, or something. It's like the broadcast is over for the day.
yes.
Basically, go
And
go to
you
bed.
want it to continue and it doesn't, just like, okay, I gotta go to bed. Yeah.
We're done. But
Yes.
now you have unlimited choices. You can go on YouTube. You can get on any social media platform. You can, hop from one to another and just be endless. And so we talk about the scroll or scrolling.
Yeah.
And
Which kills creativity. Yeah.
it most often does. It can also incite creativity,
Yes.
like,
Thank you
if
for
you
correcting.
use it for
Yes.
that, and if you discipline yourself to look away, in and I'm you know,
Balance is necessary. Yes.
maybe here's where I'm the nerd, but it's like, I think today's social media is a bit like that Greek myth of, the Gorgon's head or Medusa. It's like you stare at it and it's like it turns you to stone. And you need
Ah,
some way of like being able to turn away from it and not being like, the word astonished actually means
yeah.
to turn to stone. you know,
Yes.
it, to be astonished, you're astonied or you're turned to stone because all of a sudden you're just frozen. And
Yeah.
that's what, the Medusa myth was about. And I think today's social media has that effect on people. And we willingly submit to that. We cooperate with it instead of saying, like, let me get something, time myself. I get 2 minutes, I get 5 minutes, whatever the time is, and then I'm going to turn away, and then I'm going to use whatever I got as my foil, and then go do something creative with it,
Yes.
process it.
Yes. Journaling could be a great way to just reflect on, you can do journaling in the morning, you can do journaling just before you go to bed, or you can take a 10-minute journaling throughout the day, especially when you are in a very stressful situation or in a situation where you don't know what hit you, emotions just come on in the middle of the day, in the afternoon, in the morning, and just spending 10 minutes. So the idea why I'm advocating how why this is such a useful gift, and maybe in future episodes I can have you on to talk about breath work, meditation, and as well as mental health walks, how all this help in producing a life more on purpose and meaning and fulfillment. But today we're going to stick with journaling. It really helps you get in touch with your inner self. So another question I have is, Ron, do you have a time limit? Because I mentioned about morning pages. The practice I used to do was don't stop until I finished 3 pages of just junk thoughts. And I had so many junk thoughts back then. Now it's like a vacuum cleaner. What is what journaling has done for me? The mind is clean, you
Hmm.
know. So I don't have to have so much junk. I don't have much junk thoughts. More now, I'm using journaling to clarify my ideas, what I want to do next, to sharpen some of the thinking I have, and consider all the perspectives. So, what is your practice? What do you, any tips that's
I've
helped?
tried time writing. I think you've introduced that idea to me. I've not found it particularly um, something that kind of syncs up with me and the way I like to do it, like setting a 10-minute timer or even 30 minutes or whatever. Um, I do tend to run up against the practical limit of I need to get on with something else. I need to do something else. And so I I tend to limit myself to like writing. I set a goal, I guess, of like I want to write a page in my journal, one page as a minimum. And some days that's all I get out. Some days I don't get to write at all. But I try to write a page. And if I can get 2 pages in, it used to be that it's like that's pretty solid. And it's rare that I would go over 2 pages unless I really got a lot to say or I'm really working out a particular thought and maybe an article idea, or sometimes whenever I'm taking notes on something very rich. And so I'm just capturing all of that and I'll go more than 2 pages. So it's more of and my journal is like, it's this size. It's a bullet journal. And it's not like it's huge, and it holds a lot. I think it's roughly 300 words or so. Three to 500 words is kind of a
Mm,
goal.
okay.
Um, yeah, for writing. Although I haven't really counted my words for a long, long time. But when I first started, I did that, just to kind of see how many words is that.
What happens, Ron, when you are not journaling? Have you noticed the difference?
I'm not sure what you mean. What happens when I'm not journaling? You mean when
Don't
I
do journaling, yeah. What happens to the quality of your day or your mind? Have you noticed that? Any difference?
I do tend to be more scattered.
Mm,
I reactive.
mhm.
Um, I I don't I don't I was going to use some other words like, I tend to ruminate, which is, I would say, a unproductive form of like just noodling over things and being in my thoughts. So maybe a better way for me to answer it would be to say what journaling does for me
Mm.
is it's a cure for overthinking. Now, I
Oh,
know that the ultimate cure for overthinking is action. Take action on
yeah.
something. You don't get yourself out of the rut of overthinking by thinking some more.
Mhm.
But the specific action of writing things out and writing what I'm thinking, it slows me down for one thing. And also writing what I'm feeling, gets me in touch with other stuff. And so I think writing is an action that helps as an antidote to overthinking.
Mhm.
So if I don't journal, I tend to ruminate, I tend to overthink, I tend to be reactive, and it hurts productivity.
Oh, yeah.
So, what about your journaling,
Yeah.
and um, so you mentioned morning pages, and you've kind of hinted at different things. Tell us or share with us a little bit about what you've discovered, your practices, what helps, what you found to be a dead end or not so productive, not helpful when it comes to journaling.
When I first started journaling as an adult, I mean, it was when I was a teenager or a young student, journaling was a way just to write stuff that, I don't want other people to know about. I think, um, and, just to have a memory of certain things. Later on in my 20s, I realized what journaling does for me. It's for me to process things, process my feelings. And that also it's a way for me to talk about things that, how should I say this? Because I really live in a different culture now, um, where I become mindful because I don't want to just spew out stuff into the world. And so journaling in my 20s was a way to help me pour out all the yucky, negative, confusing things. Because what I was committed to in life is to show up as someone who who wants to do good and share good. So it's a place for me to just that's why I came up with the word junk journaling. It captures a lot of yucky stuff. Did I answer the question, or can you, help me along? Is that something
Um,
you're looking to hear from me?
so
Elaborate.
if journaling is more of a way, or it's operated as like a way for you to, um, let me put it up here, what I captured,
Hmm.
to help you process your feelings and pour out all the stuff that's going on inside of you. I think there was something else. There was somewhere you were going, which was like you don't want to, if you didn't use this word, but I'm going to make it up. You don't want to inflict all of your thoughts and
Yes.
all of your
Yeah.
noise and
Yeah.
stuff, all
Yeah.
that stuff going on inside of
Yeah.
you on people around you. And
Yeah.
so to prevent that, you pour it into the journal so that you have better quality stuff coming out of you when you're interacting with people.
Yeah, and I think you have to consider how I was raised because I grew up in Singapore. I was born in Singapore. I was raised in a very orderly society, very clean. In fact, I remember growing up and we pride ourselves in being a garden city. So I remember reading. I mean, when we were in school, having textbooks where they remind you to keep your environment clean, okay, and beautiful. So that became sort of like my philosophy on life too, on how to live. I want to bring out good stuff. I want to, so I don't know. Maybe I was just being silly, because I see a lot of people rant and rave and just pour out all kinds of stuff out there, and sometimes some of the stuff is just, how should I say it? It's full of rage and it's unkind and just not nice and it's
Yeah.
hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
so and 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 there's some stuff, hard stuff that people share out there, which I'm not saying that they shouldn't share it. I'm just saying that, especially I think some people are very vulnerable in what they share out there. It's just not me, because I really look at what my life is about because maybe because my father died when I was 11. So it really caused me to think, even at a very young age, what is life about? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind?
Mm,
How do I want to live? What is from in the tombstone you have the date of the year where you're born and the year that you die. It's like in that span of short time, what do you want your life to be about for the world?
yeah.
You So I'm not afraid of saying, you know, ugly stuff, but I'm just wanting to know what is it for? How is it going to help another person?
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
good.
So journaling is a way for me to become clear.
You
It's
shared
like
a
having
res-
a journal shop. Yeah.
you shared a resource with us early on, Julia Cameron, The Artist Way, and specifically the practice that she turned you on to called Morning Pages.
Yes.
I want to I want to pivot to another resource and another author, a different approach to things. Um, Natalie Goldberg.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah.
What has Natalie taught you about journaling and about being a creative, and how these work, help you work out your acts of creation?
So one of the books that Natalie Goldberg is known for is this book called Writing Down the Bones. And um, she is Jewish, and she practices Zen meditation, and is attracted to all many things, Japanese poetry and all that. And one of the things I learned from her is do not be afraid of investigating, exploring, and being with your feelings and things that are tough, that feels tough, emotions that are tough, memories that are tough. You know, don't be afraid of meeting them and writing your understanding of them on paper.
I, if I recall, it they weren't simultaneous, but they were of the same general season in life for you.
Mhm.
I think Julia Cameron may have been first, but I'm not positive on the sequence. But you came across both of these ladies, these authors, in at a similar time and season, and so Julia Cameron turned you on to Morning Pages, and I think you took that up as a regular practice. What was it that Natalie taught you as a practice, as a as like a practical thing to do, that helped you grow as a creative, besides that sort of boldness or willingness to face the tough stuff that you just mentioned? Was there any
Yes.
practice?
It disciplined my mind because there is a tendency if you're creative, or it's everyone who wants to be down the creative path. It's like the matrix. You go down the rabbit hole of things.
Yes.
And so, and it's like wild horses, in the prairie, and you have to rein in that all these thoughts in your head and rein them
Yes.
in, and then turn and like be like a horse whisperer, and learn to you know to just see the landscape of thoughts and on paper, and then look at them and then see like, oh, this is the best thing that I'm going to share with the world. That is the one that I'm going to go further in, because that, if I keep on going down that path, it's going to illuminate and something good and uplifting. So that's what Natalie Goldberg's work and her writings, the way she speaks, her ideas has helped me, and that has helped me. I'm a person in your trimetrics test, if you've known. I mean, you do a lot of assessment tools, and when you looked at my profile and my data, you know that I'm not very good at self-regulating my emotions. I'm just That's just how I'm built. I'm not a broken human being, but that's just how I am. And so, um, working on in other tools that like meditation and walking and writing, it helps me have cultivate a spirit of equanimity.
So I think, if I'm not wrong, Natalie, you mentioned she practiced in meditation and sitting zazen,
Yes.
like Zen Buddhist. She had a Roshi, a teacher that she worked with for many years. And coming out of that, I think she did both writing, timed writing practices. That was one. And then I think early on you even uncovered that she did painting as well. And so I see the paintings on the wall behind you. You were saying that kind of surprised you because it came out in the midst of the season when you were writing a lot prolifically, and so maybe share with us a little bit about how creativity isn't confined to a particular medium, whether it would be the written word or the figurative, the painting arts or the musical things. But it's like, share with us a little bit about how creativity finds different expressions.
So in a given day, probably there are 10 hours of working hours, right? Or 8 to 10, depending on how much you want to work. So I remember the days was structured in this way, where you do the morning pages, where it's all junk. It's like, goodness, what is this? It's like unpublishable work. And it's just, complaints, ranting, ravings, and just ping-ponging what you remember yesterday or what you cooked today, you plan to cook today, and what you need to take care of, and all these stuff going on. And then you reach this point where you still stay at your desk and you're still writing, and then something just comes up and you can talk about rain, in the most beautiful way, or you can write a haiku in the most deepest way. And after that, some days it would take me to 4 or 5 o'clock, but some days I get this wonderful time in which I am done by 1 o'clock. But I know that I can't just go. I don't want to just watch TV, or I'm just, even though I worked as a TV producer before, I, I just didn't want to like just consume other content that might not be relevant to me. So I remember going to the craft store here in Texas, having a budget of what I would spend, and just going down every different aisle and just exploring the different mediums. So one time I would be in the fabric aisle, and that's how I learned how to make fabric journals, fabric covers for journals. And then I'll be another aisle where I'll be doing painting. And then another aisle was, what is that word? If I can remember, it's called pyrography. Is that the word? Which is basically, I have these instruments where I'm actually burning on wood, you know, and having all the instruments to learn how to do that. So those were the things that open up new things for me to explore. Whether it's needlework or crochet, I learn new terms, new thinking. I meet new people. I interview them. For example, people in the crochet community, I ask them the difference between knitting and crocheting, because once upon a time, I just like, it meant the same thing to me. But all these things help me become more aware of all the different creative expressions that are out there. So I think I'm a very bad poster child for um, um, not very bad. I think it's different because I can't just say I'm just a musician or I'm just a singer.
Well, you're talking about an artist. I mean, art, and like you said at the beginning, an artist stays on one path.
Yes.
A creative doesn't try to choke and, channel their creativity into just one thing.
Yes. So in my LinkedIn profile, I call myself, I'm a creative human being and I'm a life coach too. So, because I'm, I'm not right now. I'm not, if there's anything that I put myself on a path as an artist, it would be being a daughter, a mom, and a wife. I never thought of those roles as being an artist, but I treat these roles as an artist.
Yeah, I can see you do.
Yeah.
What I heard from you just now, Angela, was that creativity will take shape and it will find its form if you just give it time, if you stay curious and let yourself play, basically have fun with it. Is that capture some of your lived experience, and would you agree with that?
Yeah, I love the way how you just summarizes things. Yeah, absolutely. So take shape and finds a form. You give it time. Stay curious and let yourself play. Absolutely. Yes. Would you consider yourself a creative person, Ron? Because I think you are, because you take Aikido, you're private pilot, you have a private pilot license, you learn Chinese, Hebrew, Greek language, anything about history. So would you consider yourself a creative person? Because you let yourself explore things.
Um, I'm I certainly explore and I'm curious about things and I do give myself time. I don't let myself play as much as I could. And
Mm,
so I don't know if I fulfill your kind of all the criteria, check all the boxes, of letting my creativity come out.
yeah,
Um, but I do think there are aspects of my life
yeah,
and my own leadership where I try to be creative.
yeah,
And I do know that it's very unsatisfying for me to simply repeat
yeah,
or fall in line behind what others have said
yeah,
or their point of view. I always want to tweak it. I want to improve upon it. I want to push back and challenge it
yeah,
and see if it has a soft spot or if I can, make it stronger, clearer, better. And so maybe that's where the creativity comes in is that, I don't just take things as I find them. I like to work on them a little bit. I like to improve. Um, it's harder for me to just create from a blank canvas or, with nothing there
yeah.
and just come up with something totally what I'd say creative. So I'm quite in admiration of people who seem like that's the way they work, that they can do that. They can just start with nothing and then it starts taking shape and it's like, wow, where did that come from? And that's that's something that i'm I'm in admiration of.
I think it's something that many of us who are we reach a certain point in our lives when whether you have adult children or you're a grandparent or you are locked in a very rigorous academic or professional path, you forget to take time to play and stay curious. We call it adulting. I've heard phrases like "don't be silly." I remember, people older than us would say, "Stop being silly." And I'm not saying that I'm advocating people to be silly now because we see a lot of silliness on TikTok, even though I'm not a user of it. There is a place to be silly. Maybe that's why TikTok, is such a popular platform. I think we
Yeah.
can be silly in a very noble way, playful in a way that brings a lot of good into the world. That I think we are all, as human beings, were wired for play. We're wired to stay curious. We're wired to learn. Now the challenge is how to find the form that where when we are playing and having fun and being silly, that form is of good use to other people. So online gambling is fun for a lot of the people who are creating it. Sports betting is very fun for those people who created that industry. But I'm not sure that's very responsible.
Hmm.
But but yet they have something that for me, I'm thinking, they remind me, it's like they're having fun doing it.
I have a question for you. And I want to use this as a way to kind of wrap us up and bring our live stream toward its conclusion because we've our time is almost up. you have actually designed quite a few journal covers and put bullet journals up for sale on your store, simpledailyjoystore.com. And I was wondering how how do your journal covers put you in a mindset of creativity, or how, maybe you even have one you could put up on the screen. I don't know if it's easy to share, but give us a picture, give us an image or an illustration of how a certain cover of a journal could just put you in the mindset of like, man, this is something I want to write in. I want to put good thoughts into this journal. Because I think that that notion, you could be very utilitarian about this. I mean, you could go get the cheapest, writing book or composition book, that we have students buy at the store or the stationery shop, you know, just the most inexpensive, most utilitarian sort of cardboard cover. But there's something to be said for having the right cover, the right package of something that you're going to put your thoughts and your feelings and your innermost, experiences into. So
Yeah.
help us out with that.
I'm glad you mentioned it because when I first started this shop, this online shop, I was wondering what goes on a cover. I love quotes. In fact, I love making quote graphics on LinkedIn and for companies. And I remember thinking, like, what is it am I going to say? And there's a special section in my shop where I have quotes. But by and large, many of my designs have just a simple word, simple daily joy. And I guess I'm advocating that the people who buy my journal notebooks, that the cover design, if you're a plant lover, you probably choose one that has the flowers design, or if you're someone who enjoy the beach, maybe you pick one that has a beach theme. I hope that what I was going after was that when people see the cover, they'll remember that those are the things that make them happy. Flowers, plants, tea, having tea, going to the beach, mushrooms. I have one that's mushrooms, or birds tweeting in the fall design, um, or butterflies to remind them that life is about uh, beauty. So uh, these are the messages that I'm trying to convey through the designs, so that when people write on paper, um, I want many people also have many kinds of journaling activities. One, you can just do junk journaling, but for the ones that I offer to the market, is that they will put down things that bring them joy.
Mm.
And over time, when they write from cover to cover, they have a treasure trove of wonderful things they've recorded that bring them joy. Because look here, we're living in we're living, maybe, I mean, this is not unusual. We feel that this is unusual, but it is not. But life is challenging and difficult. No matter how wonderful your life is, you're going to have moments where it's going to be hard. Something happens. And so I hope that when you write in these notebooks of mine, you have a collection. Sometimes on your down days, you can look at, oh, I actually have a lot of joys I've accumulated in this lifetime, or in this season of my life. So that's what I bring to the store. And for you, Ron, as we close out, I'm curious, like um, for leaders, you know, what do you want? Uh, um, why do you encourage journaling for leaders? I know you've said it many times again, but I just wanted to kind of like bring it back for the value of journaling for leaders if they've not tried it. Or if they try it, what would you give as an extra challenge? So the two questions there.
If someone's never tried journaling, for whatever reason, I would probably say, give it a try and have some set questions that you tackle whenever you sit down to journal. And a simple way to think about this is you could just write down, what I did yesterday and rely on memory. That itself would be interesting. It would bring up or show like what stood out to you, that you can recall and remember. But question one would be, what did I do yesterday? Number two is, what am I trying to accomplish today? Question three would be, what am I thinking or feeling about the challenges of today and what might get in the way? And then the fourth and final question would be, what am I grateful for? And I think that if leaders would go through that and set themselves like a period of time of even just a week, but ideally I'd say give it a month. That's a little more of a challenge. It's a little bigger ask. But if you would spend some time on that, I think you would be pleasantly surprised at what this practice brings up and how it impacts your life in a good way over the time period that you commit to do it. For leaders who have tried journaling but are not currently doing it, I think I would recommend the same thing, is follow a process, use a series or a set of questions like the ones that I just gave to give it another try. Because sometimes we do things or we give it a try in life and we just weren't ready for it. I'm thinking about books on my shelf that I tried to read, or I opened up and I got started in them and I just didn't go very far. I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't at that point in life. But then later I pick it up and it's like, it's a fresh book, it's a fresh read, and I get so much more from it. And sometimes if you tried journaling before and you're not positive about it, maybe because you just weren't ready at that point in life and you need to give it another try.
Yeah. Today, different platforms offer different benefits and help. I find that Pinterest is a really great way to Google, say, journaling prompts. There's lots of creative people out there who put out these prompts to help you to spark the writing, help you keep the movement on paper. I also love the way how you walk us through, Ron, in the set of questions you offered. Like, for example, what did you do yesterday? You start with like just recall. I mean, everybody can recall, right? I mean, that's really simple. So that's a great start. What I'm trying to accomplish today, like, allows me to think. So I have to think a little bit more, about what I want to do, because, we are given this amount of time each day. And I also love the way how you said, what am I thinking or feeling the challenges of today? Because you're asking the leader to be looking at what's going on. Maybe a child is sick, or maybe a parent is in a hospital, and yet there's still things that need to be taken care of. So just to spend maybe 5-10 minutes just putting down on paper what I'm thinking and feeling, that is a very good exercise. And then finally, what am I grateful for? It's sort of like it ups the ante of having a better spirit in tackling what we have given for the day. And whether you do it in the morning or at the end of day, that is a great question to help us get back into the state of peace and joy and love. I also like what you said about following a process. I like that. I'm always grateful for processes because yeah, I like that. Yes. So we're at the hour right now. So thank you for this conversation.
Thanks for
Um,
inviting me to do this.
yeah, thank you. All right, that's it. I hope this helps someone. Okay. Bye bye.